Welcome to the Praise the Sun podcast, where I am honored to have my guest, Tamara Emerson, spiritual coach, and she also does plant medicine integration. As we embark on this wonderful journey of learning about plant medicines, integrations, what they do, how they help us heal, along with other spiritual teachings. If you enjoy this, please make sure to like, subscribe, and give it a good rating on Spotify. All right, let's bring on our guests. Life is but a dream. Life is but a dream. Life is but a dream. Yeah. Hello, Tamara. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I am good. Praise the sun. So excited to see you and to have this enlightening conversation for the audience.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, if you could you briefly like talk about like how was life growing up for you? Like what brought you into spirituality? Like how'd you have your so-called spiritual awakening as people usually say?
Um, well, that was a long experience. I was raised in a Protestant Baptist church. My father was a Baptist minister, so I was the pastor's kid, helping out with the babies in the nursery, playing the piano for the church, and I found there was a lot of good in that. I could feel the love in the church. I could feel people wanting to help each other. But there were certain things about the religion, about church, that didn't always make sense to me, like the idea that we had all the answers, but people living in other places who didn't have the Bible or didn't have these teachings, that they wouldn't be going to heaven. Didn't quite make sense to me, but I just kind of stayed, moving forward, keeping the love and searching. And as a young adult, I developed an autoimmune condition, one of the more serious ones, and that took me on a quest to really find some answers outside of what I was being taught. And so I explored Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, and then I stumbled upon shamanism. And that's the one that spoke to me the most, although I still hold dear many Buddhist principles. But shamanism, with the emphasis on uh, honoring the earth, honoring, great spirit and the many plant spirits, that to me resonated the most. And that's where I ended up.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Wow, that actually just kind of opened my eyes to like a different way of viewing things. 'Cause I always thought like shamanism was more so like the for the practitioner, like the person who facilitates and holds space and for those things. But is it actually something that someone could kind of say that they practice as well? Like if you kind of work, if you would like to honor the spirits of, Pachamama, the earth, the wind, the fire, would you say I practice shamanism, or how could you elaborate for me?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, shamanism is not just for the shaman or the facilitator of whatever ceremony you might go to. Shamanism is really, it's a lifestyle, and it's about realizing that we are always in a relationship to the earth and to great spirit and to the many plant spirits. And in fact, one tradition I also follow is the Andean tradition, which the Andean people, the Q'ero people, um, are direct descendants from the Inca. And for them, like, their daily life is honoring. Okay, so like you say, praise the sun. I mean, so I say when the sun comes up, I'm like, hello, sun. And I have that relationship. And the water, knowing that the water is protected by a spirit and the trees are protected by a spirit. And so just really being mindful with that. And one of their main teachings is the idea of Aini, which is sacred reciprocity. So knowing that we are always in a relationship to the world around. And of course, once we then open that up and think about we're always in a relationship to the people around us too, I think that can be really helpful. Um, Maybe challenging because sometimes people, we don't always get along with everybody, but when we start to think about ourselves as being in a sacred relationship with everything, it really kind of changes our perspective. So yes, this is a lifestyle for anybody.
Great. Wow. That was a good answer. So for someone who wanted to learn more about it and then say that they practice those teachings, would that person then say that I am a shaman, or how would they say that I practice shamanism, or what would be the correct terminology for someone who actively practice those things?
That's a great question. For myself, I would say I just practice shamanism, and I've been doing this work for about 20 years. Um, Many of my teachers, some of them who I do think would be considered very much a real shaman, um, they talked about how shamans from various countries, they would be practicing for years and years, like 40 years, before they would even um, allow themselves to call themselves a shaman. So the word shaman is to me very special in that it means that you've been doing this work and you're having success and you're having results, doing the work for many, many years. That said, I see a lot of, especially young people, they do one fire ceremony or they take one shaman workshop and now they're a shaman. And part of me is like, well, okay, not really. But the other part of me is like, okay, that's fine. If that's going to help them really ground them into thinking about, I'm being mindful that I'm always in relationship to things around me and to people around me, then fine, call yourself a shaman. But in reality, it would take many, many years of practicing and having much success in the practices before you could technically call yourself a shaman.
Great. I love that answer. That was really thorough. Um, okay, so you said that you also learned from the Andi people. Is that I say that?
Andean,
And
Anden. Yep.
oh, Andean people. Okay, great. Andean people, and they are descendants of the Inca tribe.
Mhm. Yeah, technically, the people would be the Quero people who live in the Andes Mountains. So Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia. So Quero is Qero. Mhm.
Oh, okay. Okay, got you. So it's technically the Kuro people.
And the tradition is Andean tradition.
In the okay, got you. And um, so so the teachings that they have, is it a direct lineage from the Incan, or has it changed a bit, or could you briefly talk about those teachings?
Sure. Um, I think with all teachings, there's always shifting and changing. I would not necessarily know all the details and what has shifted and changed. Because even now you can study with different teachers who practice the Andean ways, and they all might have slight changes in different teachings. For instance, one teacher I recently spoke to when I was in Peru, I was asking him, okay, so what would be the Andean equivalent of calling on God, right? Because we, in the Christian tradition, we would say God, or the Native American tradition, Great Spirit. And he said, oh, we don't really have that. But then a week later, I talked to another teacher, and he was saying we are coaching, and gave me more of an insight into the idea of we are coaching, because we were coaching was also a person who was living in the Incan times. So there would be we are cocha. He said was the person who was living on the earth, but we are kochan was someone who they referred to as God or God the Father, or the great creator, the prime mover, the Almighty, we could say. So that's just one example. Like even right now, there's some differentiation. However, in general, the basic idea is that you're seeing yourself as one part of a great cosmos of energy, and that we can work with those energies and bring more harmony and healing to our lives, and to the world around us. Um, so one other thing I would say about the Andean tradition, just like so many cultures, the Inca culture for many years was really quite mm, healthy, and society was really healthy, and there was a lot of harmony. But towards the end of the society, literally right before the Spanish came, there was starting to be a lot of breakdown in society, and that's when they started to have some of the more if you were to study history, and maybe not so beautiful parts of the Incan tradition, just like every other culture, where they would have human sacrifice or slavery and things like that. So, like every culture, there's the times that are really good and harmonious and society's working well, and then there's times where there's a breakdown for some reason, greed. Something comes in and destroys it. So.
I feel like that's a really fascinating thing that seems to reoccur throughout um, the lineage of humans. And I feel like to me, it's kind of euphemistic of the exact thing that a lot of these traditions taught about when they're not kept in line, when the healing is not there, and things just kind of start to separate and dissipate, and maybe external influences, ideas start to come in and kind of get into the culture and mess things up. Then you start to have the exact thing that the ancestors talk about within their own group of people. It's causing division and stuff like that. Because it definitely seems like when things are more harmonious, everyone's more in tune with each other, and people are more mentally healthy. And then we have the things like slavery stuff that comes in, and stuff like that, and that's kind of going against the exact teachings that they talk about. So that's always interesting to me. Do you feel like the planet is kind of very much a reflection of the psychology of the beings on it, like some of our disorders that are not being healed, things that are being not addressed, that we're kind of then taking out on the planet itself?
Taking out on the planet, or
Yeah, like pollution and stuff like that is like kind of like a result of our own things that are not balanced within inside of us, within our mind, body, and soul.
mm, yeah, I think well, especially right now, we're in a very tumultuous time. So it's not even just hurting the earth with pollution, we're hurting ourselves. And I think part of that is we've given up um, the idea of finding our own authority and our own power within ourselves, and we always look for something else to save us, a government or a doctor, or this tradition, that tradition, versus realizing we create it. And so, right, pollution, we're not even taking care of our own lives and our own bodies. We're polluting our own bodies. And so, of course, we're not even thinking about what we do when we, throw trash outside, and not dispose of it well, or we use so much because we buy everything from the store versus growing our own food. So there is so much of a connection. But for me, it all stems back to how much agency do I want to take over my own life? How much do I believe in myself to create a life that I'm going to enjoy, even with and I definitely understand when things don't go the way we think it should go, like when we go through trauma. It can be very, very challenging to bring ourselves back and realize that no, actually, the answers are in me. And I can get assistance from different teachers and shamans and facilitators and coaches. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's me. It's up to me to do something to take care of myself. And when we do that, I think that will start to um, feed over into us taking care of our beautiful earth as well.
Thank you. So is that kind of like a core teaching within the Andi people? Like you can help yourself, you can save yourself. Is that something that's kind of like core in the teaching?
Um, yes, I would say that is in there because they definitely are like with this idea of we are working with the energy of the universe. For instance, in the term that they would use, the Quechua term, would be that all around us there's the kausai, the living energy, and we can use that kausai, that living energy, to bring sami, or positive energy, or cleansing energy, into our body to cleanse out any heavy energy, which they would refer to as wucha. So that's one of the spiritual practices. But I started having these ideas about this idea of, it starts with me, based on my own experience. So going back to, I was raised in a very strict Christian home. I was the pastor's kid, and got married to a good Baptist guy. And then as I started to grow and learn things, I ended up, and I got the autoimmune condition. I left my husband, and my family disowned me because against the Christian religion, this is, not good. So I went through a lot of trauma of, okay, I was so close with my family, and now I had no family at all. And the autoimmune condition was getting worse and worse. So I had no help anywhere, no friends, no family, nothing. And I was, rock bottom. But I that's where I went even deeper into, well, okay, so I'm at choice right now. I can just give in to this disease and be done with it all. Or is there something in me that says we're going to move forward? And, yeah, it was there. So it was a choice for me to make. Was it easy? No, every day was hard. You don't have money, you don't have help, you don't have health insurance and all these things. How do you get better? Well, literally one day at a time, 1 second at a time. So I had a lot of that in me already before I even started to learn the Andean teachings. And but that resonated very much with me because I was like, yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was doing. And actually, if I had had those teachings, I probably would have gotten better much faster and smoother. So that's where it came from.
That makes sense. Wow. It's it's so interesting how very often there's these moments in life where people kind of hit that moment that's just like your back's against the wall, you got to figure this out, you kind of break through on the other side of where you actually needed to be, which is for you it was the Andean teaching. So that's powerful. How do we as humans accumulate wucha?
Mhm.
And what is wucha again?
Which would be referred to as heavy energy or just dense, slowed down energy, and only humans create it. So,
Is it because of our minds? Is that the psychology? Is that how we're creating wucha? And because that's what I would think is if we can only create it, then is probably because of our intellect. Because animals don't really
mhm.
have that in a way. Not to say that they can't grieve if something happens to them, but I think the psychological grieving that we do is so much more worse than what my cat can do or something.
Mhm.
So yeah, how do we accumulate wucha? Like how does that happen?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it could be thinking. I think for humans, it's even more than that though, because even animals can figure out a puzzle, or learn language, but there's something unique about humans where we can hold on to things. We have emotions that we maybe don't express or don't work through, or we start to allow, I don't know, like a very dark energy, like we start to have greed or envy, or we really like power, and so we're trying to manipulate and have power over others, which I don't necessarily know, I know the Christian version of where this is coming from, but there's many different traditions. In the Andean tradition, it's not even so much that it's coming from an evil side. It's just this is coming from within humans. Somehow we create this heavier energy, and it can pull us down. So even sadness. So sadness. If we feel sadness, we need to feel it, and we need to express it, and we need to process it. But we either just hold it in and we never process it, or we just indulge in the sadness, almost like we get addicted to it. Well, no, so we're hopeless. So we say things like, well, I can never do that because I'm this is happening to me, or, um, and that's actually just a mind thought belief that isn't serving us. So that's heavy energy. So if wucha is heavy, condensed, it's slowed down energy. But when we open up to the cow side in the Andean tradition, or Great Spirit in the Native American tradition, and we just allow the energy to work through us, then we can let go of the more dense energy, the stuff that's really holding us back.
Thank you. So, what would be the way to let the Great Spirit into you? How would that go? How would we allow ourselves to have that in us so that we can allow ourselves to release that wucha that we're holding within inside of us?
Yeah. In the Andean tradition, it's simply just with intention. So um, I would, with intention, say, okay, now I'm opening myself up to Sami, the light energy, and allowing it to come and move through me. And with my intention, I just simply say, and I'm giving the wucha to Mother Earth because she composts it, she reprocesses it. I'm just giving it to Mother Earth, and just keep allowing that stream to work through, keep allowing the Sami to work through. So it's all with intention. You don't have to necessarily feel it, you don't have to visualize it. You just simply, with intention, I'm now doing this. Um, and as a little story, I think is kind of funny, showing again human nature. When I first started learning it, I was like, okay, well, I got to practice it when it actually matters. So one time I was angry about something. And I was like, well, I should probably try the Saman Chakwi, which is the practice of moving the Sami in and letting the Wucha go. And I thought to myself, yeah, but I'm angry. I want to be angry. I don't want to do this. So even then, like my own stubbornness, I wasn't quite ready. And that's okay too. Like I wasn't quite ready to let go of the anger, but then I could laugh at myself and just notice, like really notice, like, oh, so I'm choosing to hold on to the anger for whatever reason. Maybe I needed to indulge in it for another minute or two or whatever. But then, okay, now again, it's a choice. It's a choice of, with simply intention, like I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let it go, and breathe, and move the energy through. So,
That is wonderful. I love that because that is when it matters the most, is the ability to practice it in the heat of the moment. Otherwise, you know, you're not utilizing the teaching and following the teaching. So I love that. Um, so you said it was a step process, or if I heard you correctly, like there was a step process and for like releasing the wucha and allowing yourself to let go.
sure, I can go over it real quick. So the teach that particular technique is called the Saman Chakwi. Saman Chakwi. So Samin, and then Chakwi, Chakuy. Um, and Chakwi just means like the way, and Sami is bringing that the light energy. So just like getting grounded, rooted, with intention. I'm opening up to Sami, bringing it into over the head, into the body, what many people refer to as chakras, but they don't say chakra, they just say the eyes, the nowis, the throat and the heart and the belly, bringing that light energy in. And then I'm going to open up the bottom of my energy body, which is their pokpo is their energy body. And I'm going to open up the bottom and let the heavy energies flow into the earth. And so you could start feeling like an energy flow. Like right now, I just feel like a faucet was turned on, but you don't have to feel it. That's not, don't get attached to the feeling. The more important part is the intention of I'm opening up the faucet of just letting the light energy come in and moving through and letting the heavy energy move out until it starts to feel overall your energy body feeling a little more open and light and not so heavy. And then once that does, then you close off the bottom part, where you stop giving off the heavy energy, and make sure you fill everything all up with the really positive light, beautiful energy. And then when it feels full and like you got everything you need, then you go ahead and turn off the faucet. So that's just one of the techniques. I think, the two main ones when you first start the practice is the Salmon Chakri, doing this one, and the Saiwa Chakri, which is bringing the energy up from the earth, the grounding and very balancing energy, bringing that up from the earth. So,
I love those. Thank you so much. I definitely will be giving them a go myself and trying them. Um, have you ever thought about doing like a guided version of those for YouTube? Because I think you were describing it so way. I was like getting into it over here, and I was like, this would be great. That would be pretty cool.
yeah, think about it. Yep.
Okay, so uh, uh, so so from, I guess, the Andean perspective, like what are the main things that kind of cause us illness as people? Like what are the Americans over here missing that is like causing so much disharmony, that so much so that like there are so many people who are going in droves over to South America to get back in touch with Pachamama. Like what is it that's happening here that's causing such a disturbance? Like what, from their perspective, what's wrong with us as, not just Americans, but what's the main illness?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, that's a loaded question. I could talk hours on that one. I think we both could. Um, so, well, for one, we're holding so much heavy energy. We haven't processed we've been through so much trauma. Pretty much everybody in our culture is constantly going through trauma and mass programming of, oh, you need this and you need that. I mean, think about it. As soon as you turn on the TV or the internet, it's telling you, you need this product, or you need, to do this for your hair or your makeup, or you need this car or whatever. And it's never suggesting that, guess what, you're totally fine just as you are, and you look beautiful just as you are. Like, you don't get that. Like, you have to look for those messages out. But every other message we get is telling us that we are lacking something, we're not good enough. And then we get it from our schools and our teachers and our religions. We're never good enough. And so I think that is a huge part of a problem, especially in American culture, is everyone's walking around feeling like not enough, and not beautiful. And speaking of South America, so I had heard a story of a shaman, or a group of people down there. I think it was the Shuar tribe. A teacher was working there. American teacher went to go learn from them, and he was like, "Well, why do you guys?" The teacher asked, "Why do you guys shapeshift?" Because that's something that they do in the Shuar tribe. Would shapeshift into an animal, which is another shamanic tradition of, to process out emotion. You might go through a trance dance, which I have done before, and I shapeshift into a jaguar. I didn't actually become a jaguar, but through the trance dance, like, you kind of get into that feeling of a jaguar as a way to let go of heavy emotion. So, anyways, this teacher's asking them, "Why do you guys shapeshift? This is so weird." He's like, and they said, "Well, why do you guys shapeshift into cancer? That's so weird." So this idea that it's all energy. Like even cancer, and trust me, I understand. I'm not like, if someone has cancer or some other illness, I'm so sympathetic and so empathetic because I've had my own issues. But really, even through my own condition that I'm working through, I now see, and I'm not completely done with it. Like it still comes on a little bit here and there, but I can always root it back to where my thoughts been. What have I been focusing on? I've been focusing on, oh my God, I have to hurry. I'm not getting enough done. Okay, as soon as that happens, I know what happens. My right hand starts to hurt, right? Or I feel like I kind of failed. I could have done more in that situation or whatever. And then, oh, my stomach starts tightening up, right? So that's just shapeshifting. It's shapeshifting into something that doesn't serve us versus thinking like, wait a second, we can shapeshift into the most beautiful, harmonious, abundant, in a financial, beautiful way, people that we want. It's just a matter of where are we putting our focus, where are we putting our attention and intention.
That was wonderfully said. That's 100% what I feel as well. I've been doing my best to be on social media a lot less because I definitely feel like it was most of the time I'm good and on there to see what friends are up to, whatever, and occasionally I might see something funny, but the chance of me seeing something that actually lowers my vibration is actually a lot higher than something that's gonna raise it, and perhaps that could be my algorithm or whatever, but I just you can just turn it on and see something really sad and it's like, okay, that's pretty sad, and then now I'm sad because of something that's happening in the world or something, or yeah. So I'm just like I really see myself going in a direction of where I'm like utilizing this less because I just don't feel like it's helping me, and it's a shame because I use it to connect with people and promote this platform and stuff like that, and those are the things I love, but everything has to come with it with a balance of not overusing it, and that's probably what a lot of our issue is as well, is like we are completely just stuck to the phone absorbing so much of that insecurity. It's a shame that the statistics are that a lot of young women are now like the suicide rate has skyrocketed since Instagram has come around and stuff like that, and that's because they have endless opportunities to compare themselves to other young girls or whatever is going on there, which is sad. So I can definitely understand that. I felt long-winded, sorry, but
No, no, it's so true, it's so true, and, I actually, because I am a little bit older, than this culture, so I didn't have Instagram when I was, a teenager or, young early college, and I'm so glad I didn't because I kind of feel bad. I see so many and not just girls, it's everybody, there these selfies, nonstop selfies, and I'm just thinking, okay, you look like you're happy, but are you really happy? And some of them I know personally, and I know that they're not really happy. And it's like almost as if the people who are I know are personally struggling the most, who have the most selfies, and it is sad. But one other thing you mentioned too, that we get on there and we see sad things happening in the world, and this is the one that I struggle with the most because I do kind of want to know what's happening in the world, not just what our mainstream media tells us, because I know that that's not always 100% accurate, so I'm always looking, at other things, but I have to be careful, like, not to fall into just complete negativity of, okay, we're always going to be struggling and the world is falling apart and there's wars and violence everywhere, and I see it. And so then that takes me to, okay, I can see it. I can have it affect me in that I feel compassion and empathy, and it makes me stronger and wanting to do more of my work, but I'm not going to let it affect me where it brings my energy down, because if I want to be the most help to the world, that is deeply struggling right now, then I need to keep my vibration in a good way. Which, doing the salmon chakra, or doing my meditation practices, or whatever your specific spiritual practice is, so that I'm creating more of a positive vibration of love. And this past year, I came across a website that actually I kind of think is it's kind of maybe silly, but I like it. It's kind of fun. It's this idea of you can become a Jedi, and I was like, what is this? You can become a Jedi. I got to read this. And the first one was like, okay, that you realize that there is a force, which that's moves through the universe, and to me that just means, okay, so in the Andean tradition there's the Kaosai, or in Tai Chi there's just always this energy, or that there is energy around that we can use for good, if we tap into it. And then it was also, to keep a cool head, that things are gonna get us going, but a Jedi would always keep a cool head. But that doesn't mean to not feel. Another one was something like a Jedi, processes out feelings. And also, it's only once we fully can process out our emotions and feelings can our intuition be strong. And a Jedi would use his or her intuition, and much, much more. And I was like, oh, this is kind of good. Like, I like this idea of being a Jedi. So.
I always love that as well. Star Wars will always have a special place in my heart, because there's just so much of that that's just it resonates with me on a spiritual level. Use the Force, and how there's this battle between light and dark, and how the different ways, how the light chooses to express itself, and how the dark does, and specifically just like the Force, that force of nature, is to me is what I always resonated with, that and Master Yoda. but yeah, I love that. So how do we find that balance? Because I also would like to stay in tune with what's happening in the world and not just be oblivious. But I remember my question now. You have you heard of Eckhart Tolle?
Yes. Mhm.
So Eckhart Tolle has this thing saying that there's the pain body within us, and sometimes the pain body likes to feed on negativity. Is there anything like that in the Andean position and tradition, where there's kind of like this energy inside of us that feeds off of negative, that feeds off of negative, that kind of keeps it imbued within us?
Um, I don't know of any specific teaching that suggests that we get addicted to that pain body, or we're drawn to it. It just simply the wucha, and like that we need to get, we release it. I think that's kind of more indicative of our culture, because we are an addictive culture. And you know one way of not dealing with the present moment and whatever's happening is just, yeah, addictions. And sometimes that can be drugs or coffee or sugar, but sometimes it can just simply be, we get addicted to feeling sad or our pain. So that doesn't surprise me. That's an idea from Eckhart Tolle, with his, being here in the moment. um, so again, I think that goes back to, if just to do something of moving the energy in your body. So, I studied the Andean, but before that, I studied Tai Chi. I went to China when I was younger and did Tai Chi and continued it here. And that's moving the energy. And I ride horses, and like I know I can actually feel like so much different, whether it's meditation or yoga or the Andean practice or Tai Chi, from before I start to after, even if it's only 15 minutes. I can feel so much more free, and a little lighter. And I think that is helpful. But again, we don't get taught this very much in our culture, but I think people are starting to learn it. I do see more and more young people starting to realize, like, if I just take 15 minutes to start to clear energy and move energy in some way, just dance at home with your favorite music for about 15 minutes, and you'll feel lighter.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So from the Andean perspective or tradition, is there any specific reason why the humans kind of get addicted to things? Is it kind of more so like you said, the culture that we've kind of created here in where it's kind of like the economy kind of
Yeah.
naturally program us to be addictive to things.
Yeah, yeah, I would think so. Because in reality, I don't really know if they have anything about addiction. That's so interesting. I'm gonna follow up with that. But my guess from those who have spent time with, whether it's the Andean tradition or the Shipibo tradition, which is the more jungle tradition, and the plant medicines, all of those, there isn't this idea of addiction. You don't hear about it very much, but if you think about it, if they're living in a way where they're not constantly feeling pressure from the outside, that they're not doing enough and that they need, oh, you need this, you need that, and they're just living in harmony with nature. So waking up each day, praise the sun, hello to the sun, um you know growing your own food or hunting your own food, and growing doing your own making your own clothes. I mean, these people are making their own absolutely beautiful. I mean, this is something from the Peru, with the alpaca, and herding their own animals. And um, I don't know if they even have time to think about being addicted. So um, I don't have anything that's coming to mind that in their cultures would be an equivalent to our idea of addiction, but um, I think they're just enjoying life so much. But I'm curious now. I'm going to follow up on that.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Cause I definitely see that, that definitely seems to be like a reoccurring thing that, people seek plant medicine help for is addiction. It's just, what is causing us uh, to hold on, because that's essentially what addiction is. It's like your inability to let go. You kind of cycle through these thoughts that keep you doing this behavior, and it's hard to break that habit. Even though this behavior is what's causing you harm, psychologically you think that this thing is helping you. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I forgot the what it was described to clear the wucha. I didn't wanna mess it up. but
Sam, salmon chakwi.
the Saman Chakwi. Okay, so would that be an effective way of working through addictive patterns? If someone has addictive patterns, something that they're trying to work through addiction, would that be something effective, or would that be something that you would kind of utilize post integration if you were happen to wanted to work with plant medicine or something like that?
Mhm. Um, I think no, salmon chakra is for anybody at any time. And in fact, the Andean tradition is not connected to the plant medicine world per se, because the Andean tradition is more from the mountains, and the like plant medicines like ayahuasca is more from the jungle, and so they don't actually meet so much, but. I think something like the Saman Chakwi practice would be absolutely wonderful for someone who's trying to quit smoking or quit drinking. I'm not saying it's going to be an instant fix. All it could be, but like each time that urge comes up to do that practice, or if you are a follower of meditation, like to sit for 5 minutes. And the thing, the why we have the addictions is because we don't want to feel what we're actually feeling. Like, and I understand that. Like, so, um, when we go and try to, have a sugar fix or a caffeine fix, is because we don't, we feel, oh, I'm tired, or, and we don't want to just be who we are. So we're looking for something else outside of us to change how we feel versus why don't I just sit and take some deep breaths for a moment, or go for a walk in some fresh air. And so we're constantly looking other things versus trying to just feel what we feel. And I think also we get afraid to feel what we feel. We haven't been taught to do that. It seems so overwhelming. So some of the heavier addictions like alcohol and drugs is probably because the person has had a lot of trauma. Most times I see that they've dealt with a lot of trauma, a lot of false beliefs been put on them about they're not gonna, succeed, they're no good. And rather than going into the feelings, and yeah, it might be hard for a minute, remembering all those memories and going through it all, but at the end of it, it's great. And it's actually, I find that once you allow yourself to feel the feelings you're trying to avoid, it's not that bad. It actually can feel very, very good to feel it and allow yourself to get what needs to be, uh, felt from that, and let it go. So,
I love that. What you just said was really powerful, and I hope if anyone's struggling with anything, you play that last part back again and again, because what's really gonna help you to integrate and let those things go, because you are absolutely feeling something that you don't want to, but like you said, if you feel it, it can feel liberating, it can feel healing, and that's how you get on the other side of that addiction. So thank you for that. That was wonderful. So I have another question, but it's a bit longer because I have to explain the dream that I had. So bear with me for a second. So I had a dream that I guess my neighbor was doing some renovation or something like that. All their stuff was out on the front yard, and the people who were doing the renovation or whatever came to knock on the door to offer me a price or something like that. And I was like, no, thank you, I'm good. So close the door, and then I guess maybe some moments later, a younger person who works with them came to the door, and I guess I was like really upset or something like that at the time, and I was like, I'm not interested, leave me alone, and I guess I just closed the door, and I didn't even hear what the person had to say. So then I guess a little bit of time passed, and then the kid, I don't know how he did this, but he just kind of walked in my house. He just walked in, and he wanted to use the bathroom, and I was like so upset. I was like, "No, get out of my house!" And then, I guess I saw him outside, and he was like really upset or something like that. And then I was like, "Okay, I kind of feel like a jerk. All he wanted to do was use the bathroom." So I kind of like snap out of that state I was in, and I'll go outside. And he was like really upset and stuff. And I was just like, I don't even know why this conversation initiated, because it just seemed so random. But I was just like, I told him like, you need to let go of whatever energy inside of you is making you angry like that. I was like, only anger can express anger, and like only pain can express pain. And if you have that energy within inside of you, if you're expressing that energy, is because you have that energy inside of you. And I was like, just let go. And it was so weird because it doesn't feel like I was talking to that kid. It felt like I was talking to myself. It was like an
mhm.
older version of me or something like that. I was talking to myself. It was just like, it was
Mhm.
weird. So it's just like the energy you carry is the energy you express. So I say all that to say, is there any type of spiritual teachings that kind of talk in that tone? It was just like the energy that you carry, the energy you express. If you express anger, it's because you carry anger inside of you. Are there any teachings that talk about anything like that?
Mm, yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that's a basic spiritual principle. Is there a particular teaching that I can think of? Um, okay, so not there isn't a specific teaching that's coming to my mind, but from my experience, like my own experience as well as seeing other people and working with other people. So going back to, let's say, addiction. So yes, if we haven't, or even not necessarily addiction, but just feeling things or having emotions that we haven't allowed ourselves to feel, um, eventually they do come out, and that's, I think, and you'll see this in a lot of spiritual, um, talks and books, that it often will come out in an illness, like a physical body. So those who don't express it at all and they hold it all in and they have to be good for everybody else, it often comes out in an illness. And then, we see other people, if they haven't processed out whatever they're experiencing, the trauma or false belief systems they've taken on, if they haven't processed it out, then it comes out, they do it to others. So you will see, parents who, their parents beat them and now they are beating their children, and then, it goes on down the line until finally one of the kids, breaks the cycle. So, but if we think of emotions in a little bit more neutral, emotions are just energy. It's just energy. So one of the things, especially with anger, um, because my father got angry a lot. There was anger in my house a lot. So I also had anger. Like that's, I've studied this a little bit anyway. And the thing about anger is when you get angry and then, you know, you're like trying to process it and trying to let it go, but now you're angry that you're angry, so now it's even worse because you're like, oh, but I should know better, I should, and now you're angry at yourself that you're angry, and it goes on and on and on. But when you start to realize that, okay, anger or jealousy or envy, all these like heavy emotions, if we just think of them as energy, it's just energy. And so going back to Salmon Chakwi, or going back to the idea of the Jedi, I'm just now going to let that energy move and be composted and reprocessed by the Mother Earth and come up as a beautiful flower or whatever it's going to do. It's just heavy energy, dense energy, condensed energy. And even things like anger, it's anger showing us where we've sometimes have been, our boundaries have been crossed, or what makes us feel okay, somehow that was pushed back on. And of course, it's very natural to feel anger. Um, and so feel it and let it go. It's the judgment we have about it, I think, which causes a lot of trouble.
That was great. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's definitely what I've read as well. Is that a lot of those energies can manifest into illnesses. So that's always so interesting when there's that mind body correlation. So, could you, from based on what you know, briefly talk about the differences between the different, I guess, tribes that you've studied in South America? Like, what's the difference from the Andes, from the Hopi? Is that right? Hopi tribe?
Hopi was North America, in the Southwest. I said Shipibo,
Oh,
which is in the
Shipibo.
jungle. Yeah, in the jungle,
Yeah.
and the Shuar, which is in Ecuador. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So, what are like the differences of the tribes in South America? Like, where did they conjoin and where did they differ?
Mm. Um, I think from what I know, anyway, I'm not an expert, but a lot of it is just as they are in different regions of the earth, they have different traditions. So the Andes live really in high mountains, high mountains. So um, they have that alpaca. They don't have plant medicine. It's working just with the nature spirits, Pachamama and Wiracocha. Whereas the Shipibo and the Shuar, they are in the jungle, so the lower part in the jungle, and they work with plant medicines. So they work with ayahuasca, and other plant medicines not as famous, but the sananga, the eye drops, and um, yeah. I will take that back. In the Andes, you will see coca, which to me is a really interesting plant because the coca leaf, we know in the U.S. coca leaf as cocaine, which is totally not the same thing. But in the Andes, they'll chew coca leaves to give them energy and focus as they climb the mountains. I mean, there's not as much oxygen up there. The atmosphere is really, really thin. I've been up at 15,000 feet before, and it's hard to breathe sometimes. And you chew the coca leaf to climb the mountain, and that's kind of sad what's happened with the coca leaf because it's a sacred plant down there. They even do such a thing as coca leaf readings where you go to, it's kind of like someone doing a tarot reading, but they're using coca leaves. So they, throw the coca leaves, or it's like a tea leaf reading. I take that back, like a Chinese tea leaf reading. So they throw the coca leaves, and then the reader will, give you your fortune or your answer to your question. So it's a sacred plant there. But of course, as we know here, um, in the States, a lot of people, are one of the addictions is cocaine. But if you think about it, in order to make like a tiny amount of cocaine, it would take like coca leaves, like this much coca leaves, like a huge, huge bunch that's been processed down super small. And then, of course, add a bunch of chemicals to it. So we have a very strange relationship to coca. It's become a drug for us versus for them. It's a lifestyle. It's healthy. The coca leaf, the true natural coca leaf, helps with their digestion. It helps with their whole body. It adds all sorts of beautiful minerals that your body needs. So that for me is something too to just watch how part of our culture, and it's not just like say you or me directly or anyone watching this podcast has been directly responsible. We haven't. So there's other powers who have been responsible for the fact that cocaine has become, or say coca leaves has become cocaine. However, yeah, I think it's good for us to look back and kind of be aware of how this has happened, and have, restructure our own thinking about what happens when our culture goes to other cultures, and even it's more than that. It's I think powers that be, in all of the cultures that are connected in that's trying to control all of us, the little people. I would say like you and I and the people on the podcast are the little people. We don't know what's happening until it happens. And but yeah, just another thing to think about what's happening culturally around the world.
That is, wow. I just learned a lot about the cocoa plant. That is so interesting that that's it just seems to be a reoccurring thing of like there's these natural things that, that Mother Earth gives to us to help us heal, and then we just find a way to either, monopolize it, profit off of it, or become addicted to it. And that's just not what, that's not what it's there for. So it's always sad, but yeah. So, so speaking more about the plant medicine, could you talk about the different plant medicines there are and like what each one is good with helping the person heal with, or what are some of the common things that people go seek ayahuasca for or San Pedro for to work with them and heal from?
Sure. So ayahuasca is well, both ayahuasca and San Pedro, or Wachuma is the Quechua word name for that. They both are extremely good for helping with trauma and releasing trauma. Um, I would say those are two of the main master teacher plants of South America. You'll hear about iboga and ibogaine, but that's actually coming from Africa, which is also extremely powerful healing medicine. But the only ones I'm familiar with personally is ayahuasca and Wachuma, San Pedro. And ayahuasca likes to take us into our fears and worries and anxieties, and um, she's often depicted as a snake, but a good snake. And she's because it's a vine that grows up the tree, so it kind of looks like a snake. But she's taking us deep into ourselves so that we can start to see what are we holding on to, what belief systems are we holding on to that don't really serve us. These messages we've gotten from society of not being good enough or will never succeed. What are the fears that we're holding on to that keep us from fully expressing ourselves and being successful? What are the traumas we've been hiding from ourselves? Someone who does ayahuasca, I've seen this happen to many people where they've had an inkling that a certain trauma happened to them when they were young, but they never really dealt with it or even investigated. And then all of a sudden in the ayahuasca ceremony, it's very clear that, okay, this trauma did happen. They go back, they remember all the smells and everything about the situation. And so it's like bringing that trauma to the surface, and then they have an opportunity to actually feel it out and process it out, so that we're not just holding all of these emotions in and getting sick from them, or having then psychological issues from holding in so much heavy emotion. So I was really good at taking us deep, 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 and looking at these things that we keep within ourselves. I also say, ayahuasca is like holding a mirror in front of our face, so that we start to really see ourselves, because we can be like, oh, I'm a good person. I do this, I do that, and all of a sudden ayahuasca, we're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm a good person, but man, I do some things that aren't so nice sometimes. And it's okay. Like it's not like, we feel, it's good to like take acknowledgement, like, oh, I could do things better. I could be a better person. And it's not to beat ourselves down, but it's to be like, okay, I could do things better. And then she always has a way, ayahuasca, has a way of then bringing us back to the and it's okay, you did that, and now we're going to forgive ourselves and we're going to move on. So yeah, let's be honest with ourselves. Let's have an honest soul look at what we do, who we are, what we've been through, and then forgive ourselves, have compassion for ourselves, forgive others, compassion for others, and then let's move forward. So really lightening the load, really removing the wuja. In fact, with ayahuasca, as most people who've studied it at all know, that you can purge with ayahuasca, and that's where you're actually physically releasing the heavy emotions, the heavy energy. Wachuma tends to be a little bit less dramatic, but he is one of my favorites. So ayahuasca is traditionally referred to as female, as mother or grandmother, although people can call the medicine whatever you want. Traditionally, Wachuma is referred to as a he, grandfather, or father, but again, whatever, however it feels right for you. But Wachuma is one of my favorites in that it's more about like being a cactus. Wachuma is a cactus that grows straight up and reaches the sun. And if you think about the cactus, it's just opening up, going to the sun. And Wachuma is really good at opening the heart and helping us remember, be here, be right here. Okay, yes, that trauma happened. Okay, but you're still here and you're still okay. Okay, yes, you do that thing sometimes to people and it's not always so nice, but you're here and you're okay. So breathing with it, and it really takes us into deep, deep acceptance, self acceptance, acceptance of everything that's happened to us. And in learning to have a new relationship to these harsh things that have happened to us, as well as have a new relationship to parts of our own personality that aren't so pretty, so that we can start to make changes and move forward with a little bit more power and grace. So,
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. Um, wow, yeah. So, are there any psychedelics in the different tribes that are lesser known, or like, because I'm very familiar with ayahuasca and wachuma, and I know psilocybin is more so seem to be American based. Although I know there are tribes in Mexico that work with the mushroom spirits as well. But are there any other ones that are lesser known or anything like that?
yeah, that's a good question. Well, one other thing too about mushrooms, mushrooms were very, very prevalent in the ancient Celtic traditions. That's where you get all the little fairies and the Irish Celtic. So very, very popular to have mushrooms there. But yes, also then you see it in Mexico. Um, well, of course, in North America, you have peyote, which is similar to wachuma. So peyote is North America, and wachuma tends, well, you can see it growing in North America now too, but the tradition started in the South America. The same chemical compound of mescaline, although I think peyote can be a little bit stronger in certain ways, whereas wachuma lets you play in the field for a little bit more. It's not so intense, but both I've had both. I've done the peyote with a Lakota tribe, and both are amazing and quite beautiful. I don't know of any psychedelics. Other plants, though, that I find to be very, very helpful. There is a plant that grows in South America called bobinzana, and it's actually just a plant that grows along the riverside, and pink flowers, and it's not going to give you like a mind altering substance like a psychedelic, but it is extremely, extremely good for working through heart issues, like anything that's been harsh and hurtful to your heart. You can have it bobenzana as a tea or as a tincture, like I get it as a tea, and you can have it before going to bed. And it's interesting; those dreams might be a little more vivid, and they tend to be dreams in which you are processing out pain that you have felt in your heart through situations. So that is one that is near and dear to my heart. I think everyone should try have Bobenzana around. um, and Another one that I don't know where specifically this started because it has a boga in it. Is the Sananga eye drops. Sananga eye drops is also, it's not going to like have this huge psychedelic experience. And in fact, when you put them in, it kind of hurts, it like burns for a minute, but extremely, extremely helpful for opening the third eye, decalcifying the pineal gland. And also, if you do it before going to sleep, you can have very, very vivid dreams, which is also good if you're trying to do dream work, which I think is also very helpful for people who they're wanting to grow and they're trying to figure themselves out. The dream has so many answers to what's actually going on. And if you have a dream journal where you have it next to your bed and write in the morning whenever you wake up, or in the middle of the night, write what you're feeling and experiencing. You can learn quite a bit about yourself, which can then help you as you're trying to process out old, heavy stuff and move forward. But Sananga can really help you remember those dreams more visually. So, and I don't know. There's so many other ones like Chuchuwashi, which I've had a little bit. It gives you more energy. But I haven't had all of them. And some of these plants are not psychedelic, but they are very prevalent in South America. Kind of like we have herbs. I mean, if you think about it, our culture, we grew up, we still have herbs. We have St. John's wort and, all these different herbs, but we don't really value them, I think, as much as maybe some people in South America value their herbs and plant medicines. I mean, originally we did obviously the Native Americans, and then when the early Europeans came, before being indoctrinated by all of our modern culture, they were using the herbs and the plants to make tinctures and teas. Chamomile, we all know peppermint, and but our culture, our bodies are so filled with processed food and sugar and lots of salt that even when we drink a cup of chamomile, most people don't feel more relaxed at all anyway. Well, of course you don't, because you just ate, all this processed food. Your body's like working extra hard to process that. But if you kept eating clean food, just a little more clean, not so much processed, like, mix up some veggies, like throw some chicken in the oven, eat something clean, and then drink your chamomile tea. And guess what? You're going to feel relaxed and you're going to sleep better. That's just my, my 2 cents. But I think, if we think about these plants are all over the world. And before our modern culture, this was our medicine. These plants were our medicine. Our food was our medicine. And for me personally, the life I've chosen is to go back to using these as the medicines. So.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think I have recently seen Bobanzana, is that how you say it? I
Yeah.
think I recently seen it on Etsy or something like that because I was trying to find different things that would help me work in the dream state. And I settled on Blue Lotus. And I wouldn't say my dreams were any more vivid or anything. So I'm not sure if I'm not. drinking enough or what. But it's definitely certainly interesting that, and I haven't really been drinking it this week, but this week has been, or at least the last 3 days has been a lot of euphemistic dreams of like life lessons in them. It's not like random stuff happening. It's like lessons in them, which is definitely interesting. So Bobanzana would be a good one to work with if you want to do dream work.
Hmm. Especially anything relating to the heart, which I think almost everyone. So
Yeah,
trauma, being
yeah, I need
rejected,
that.
um, anything that's really hurt your heart, it really brings that out.
Adding it to the cart now.
Yeah. And Blue Lotus, I think, is also really wonderful. I haven't worked with it as much. I think part of it is maybe the quality of the Blue Lotus too. To always try to, I don't know, but you can find. I think it's a good plant too.
That's true. Yeah, the quality. Okay. And I recently seen Ayahuma. Do you know what that is? Ayahuma?
I
Ayah.
don't actually.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, what's that? Ayahuma. I never heard of that. But yeah. Uh, okay. Yeah.
Another thought with your Blue Lotus. Did you drink the Blue Lotus last week?
I was drinking it pretty heavy for like 2 weeks, like every day, filling the entire tea bag.
And then when did you stop?
Um, Today's Wednesday. I stopped Saturday maybe, or even maybe Friday.
Yeah. So there can be a delayed reaction. Because if your dreams this week were more vivid and profound,
And
my
lessons.
guess is it's built up in your system and now it's coming out. Hmm.
I was thinking that as well, is that there might be a delayed offset where it needs to build up to then take effect. So yeah, and yeah, I think I just wasn't remembering to do it. But I'm gonna keep doing it because I bought 2 big bags full of it because I really wanted to give it a real good a trial to kind of see what I can get from it and see if I could recommend it to people to work with because I really love working in a dream state. I feel like there's just so many great things to learn from the dream state because there's just so many ways that you can learn lessons that you can't exactly learn them here in the now. So yeah, I love that. Speaking of the dream state, are there anything from the different traditions that talk about the dream state, how we can learn from them, what they're there for?
Um, for me, what I remember most is the Jungian tradition, Jung. Carl Jung. So I did long ago go to a Jungian therapist once, just to try it out, and it's really quite interesting. So, she had me keep my dream journal, and then when we would meet, we would talk about what my dreams were, and um, of course, one of the main questions is, well, whatever showed up, like, well, what does that mean for me? Like, what does that represent to me? And because you'll see dream books and dream interpretation books, and they'll say, oh, a car always means this. Well, maybe it's true, but maybe not. Maybe for you, it might be something different. Um, one thing with the Andean tradition, I they tend to be more about like the here and now. One of the principles they have is that we're not here to transcend the experience or go beyond the experience. We're here to be the best human we possibly can. So they're really about being human. But even as you were talking about some of your dreams, it brought me to remembering, like, actually another way to describe ayahuasca is it's almost like dreaming because you can see your inner self so much, but it's a more conscious inner dreaming. Um, and so, yeah, that would be, again, a little difference between the Andean and the ayahuasca traditions.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, dream interpretation is always so very interesting to me, especially when I dream about something and then it happens. That happened 3 times recently within a few months where I was dreaming that there was like an infestation of ants in my kitchen, and I wake up and then there's like ants all over the floor, and I was like,
Mhm.
that was weird. And then I don't even know if it was a week later, I dreamt about like a centipede being in my kitchen, and then I go to my kitchen and I turn on the water and a giant centipede comes out, and I'm like, how, what is happening? Like the consistency was pretty, and the consistency and the specific thing was so, it was so weird that I couldn't understand, like, what, like, it's interesting, but like, what am I supposed to do with this information? It was just like, I don't know how to utilize this, because it's clearly like the repetition is there and the consistency is pretty interesting, but I don't know how to translate that into something to work with per
Yeah.
se.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a meaning so much. It's just that, like, wow, your subconscious is very aware of what's happening in your house.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I became one with the house or
Great.
something.
No, it's good. It means that you're very, like, there's a part of you that's very, very aware. So trust your intuition.
Yes, yes, intuition. I love that. I love that. So speaking of lastly, speaking of the plant medicine again, have you ever seen something that was like really like I guess mind blowing per se, that was like really like kind of like, I don't know, like shock, not shocked you, but not like in a bad way. That was just like, whoa, that was like really cool or something like that. Like, have you had any experience like anywhere around the world that was kind of just like, whoa, that was cool, kind of
Um,
mind blowing, I guess.
with the plant medicines?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess that was kind of where I was going, but like,
Mm.
yeah, kind of like, if you seen anything at
Um,
any point during your adventures through the different countries that was kind of really cool that you never saw before, or anything like
um,
that. I guess something that kind of stood with you. I guess, yeah.
yeah, that's a good question. I've Yeah, I've experienced ayahuasca many times, so I'm trying to think of, like, the most, I'll share, well, actually, the thing that was the most mind-blowing was not an ayahuasca ceremony. It was actually something from my backyard. I can share that quickly, and then I can share my first ayahuasca experience, which I think, yeah. So
Okay.
the most mind-blowing one was actually when uh, I was gonna do an Andean despacho ceremony to share this with a group of people who I work with. And so in the Andean tradition, there's the despacho, which is where you make a gift to give to Mother Earth. And I've been studying this for a while, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm, a master or the best or whatever. Like, I'm always like, okay, getting a little nervous. And anyways, in the despacho, which I was going to do the next day, I needed to have a little shell. Usually, you have some sort of like shell that you would put in the middle of the despacho, and didn't have any more shells except for ones that I have, bigger ones that I use to burn my sage. So I was like, I just said out to, the nature spirits, to the universe, to the house. I was like, well, I need a shelf. I'm going to do this despacho ceremony. I was gathering all the stuff. And, anyways, I put it all together and went to sleep to get up for the next day, going to do the despacho ceremony. Went out into my backyard, and I do live on water, but I don't live like where there's a beach. I mean, there's grass and rocks and then water. But somehow my whole backyard was covered in little shells. And I was like totally blown away because I'm like, how would these shells get on my grass? Now, I think with some figuring it out, it probably was like some sort of beaver who brought up a shell from the water. But regardless, I had never had that before. And to me, it was like, whoa, okay, so this Andean energy stuff is actually real. Like, it works. I asked for a shell in order to do the ceremony, and they showed up, a bunch of them. So that for me, I think was the most mind blowing. But of course, ayahuasca is always mind blowing. Ayahuasca is always giving something amazing and beautiful. Although I've had ceremonies that are very simple too, and those are also very profound as I go to integrate them later. But my first ceremony, my first ayahuasca ceremony, um, I'm there, not sure what's going to happen. And, so I start feeling the medicine. And I then, I see all this, cosmic geometry. Like I see this grid of the earth and how I'm connected to the grid and all this, all that cool stuff. But I think the part, where the deep healing was, is then I started thinking about a relationship I was in at the time, and I wanted to leave that relationship, but part of me felt, I don't know, like I didn't want to. I didn't want to hurt the guy. I didn't want to be alone, and all these things. And then suddenly I started purging, and as I was purging, it was like I heard the medicine say to me, you choose your reality. Like, you can stay with the guy if you want, and not hurt him, but you're not happy. Or you can leave. And it was just very, very profound for me because it was such a simple lesson, but that it was like I could hear her say it as I'm purging out all my fears of hurting the guy and fears of being alone. And not to say like afterward it was all super easy. I still had to go and talk to the guy, and I still then had to be alone when I broke up with him. Yet it was, I knew that was the thing to do. So that made it easier. And I also felt lighter about the whole thing. So I still felt the feelings. I still had to go through it all, but I definitely felt a little more confident about doing it. So I don't know if that's the most profound, but that's what's coming to me now.
That was exactly what the audience needs to hear in this moment. So thank you so much for it. Okay, so as we wrap up, I have my last few questions that I usually ask my guests. Um, to you, what is the purpose of life? That's a loaded question, I know.
Yeah, right. um, the purpose of life for me is just to continue to just be in the moment, and to enjoy 100% what I'm experiencing, even when it's sadness, even when it's pain. Just enjoy it as much as I can in the moment, and just, yeah.
Thank you. What is your definition of love?
Oh, wow. You ask hard questions. um, my definition of love. Um, That's really hard to say in words. For me, it's literally more of a feeling, and maybe that's because I have done so much plant medicine, but for me, the feeling is where I literally feel like the heart is expanded, where I am still aware of all the things, my flaws, or things I would consider flaws. I'm also very aware of um, all the flaws in people around me, or what I might consider to be a flaw. And yet, I still feel an energy connection, and I want to just give to myself good things, and give to other people and things around me good things. So, it's not an intellectual answer so much as this is my experience of love.
And that's great, just how it is. I love that. Thank you. And what is your definition of God?
Okay, that one I have to go back again. It's an experience. Um, for me, God is that feeling when I just feel like this great presence around me that is um, supporting me, and I'm in flow with it. Um, I it's not so much a word, it's just feeling in harmony with the energy around me. Um, it also is that little voice, but maybe this is like, an offshoot of God, the spirit, the great spirit, like the little voice, like when I'm starting to make a choice that I know is not really gonna be that good for me. It's like just a gentle voice of, really? And then when I am choosing something that is good for me, it just feels that sense of love and flow. So
Thank you. And I forgot to ask this earlier, so I'm going to briefly ask it. So, For people who are like interested in working with like ayahuasca or wachuma and stuff, how do they know that it's right for them? Like sometimes maybe people might like research on YouTube, but they're like, oh, I don't know, sure yet. Like, what are the telltale signs? Like, this might be something that can help you heal. Um, cool.
Yeah, that's a good question because I don't think it's necessarily for everybody. And feel like it has to call you. I've seen people where they're just like, "Oh, I'm going to do it because I want to experience." Well, I don't know if that's quite the reason why you want to do it. Um, you could, but it has to call you that. I'm doing this because I want to grow and I want to learn more about myself and I want to become a better person. And so, is it right for you? If you're willing to look at yourself, if you're willing to um, look at all, your quote unquote flaws, but also all your quote unquote beauty, look at it all and want to really do the hard work, then yeah, I say go for it.
Yeah, that's usually that's my answer as well because people have asked me and they usually are so casual about it and I'm just like I don't think you understand what you're asking because this is not a casual thing like you
No.
this is some of the hardest work you could ever do on yourself and it's not for everyone. So if you're going to not take certain aspects of life seriously, you can just do that without this. But if you're ready to be serious about things and do the deep work, then okay, now we're talking. So yeah, it's always funny when people make it casual because I'm like, I don't
And
know
I
if you're
I will
ready.
say, along with that, I will say that I have seen people where they can drink ayahuasca, and if they're not really ready to do the work, they could then come out and say, "Oh, that was nothing. I didn't really feel anything." Well, what's happening is like their mind is like kind of shutting it down. They're not allowing themselves to go into it. So sure, I've seen plenty of people where they aren't ready to do the work, but so their experience really is kind of like not a whole lot happened. What ends up happening though is later they'll get more insights into what was really going on. But So I think also when you go in, you have to be like open if you want to actually feel it. That's the other aspect because the people who are a little more casual, sometimes they aren't really open and they don't really have much of an experience anyway. So
That's great. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. That was always so like eye opening and astonishing to me to know that ayahuasca very much controls the pace of things because I've definitely had the moments where it was nothing really happened, but then I got the intuitive hit like, well, you haven't there was nothing really to do because you haven't done what you were told to do the first time enough. You haven't really integrated the first lesson, so why would there be more lessons if you haven't integrated the first lesson? So I was like, wow, that's okay. So that yeah, that's always interesting. And lastly, do you have any last intuitive thoughts to share with the audience? Anything that comes through intuitively to share right here in the moment of now?
um I think, yeah, I think the main thing I'll share, something I share with a lot of people I work with. Um, when I was practicing martial arts back in the day, we had a meditation practice that we had to do. It was required, that was part of the practice. And our martial arts teacher would say to us, "Oh, you guys say you don't have time for meditation because you're so busy. You have, work and meetings and all these things." He says, "You don't have time to not meditate," meaning like even if you just take a few minutes to get the mind quiet and the body quiet. You will do everything else so much easier. So, what I like to share with people, because I have days where it's pretty busy. It's like one meeting after another, or I got so much happening. And as soon as I start to feel anything kind of like I'm gotta, like, I'm trying to fight life and I gotta make it happen. Okay, that's when I just say, okay, wait a minute. I'm gonna just sit down for a second on a chair on the side of my bed, whatever, just sit down 5 minutes. And I'm just gonna watch my breath. And I'm not gonna even think, just gonna let my brain, like, I'm just taking a break, just a 5-minute break. And it's amazing, how much everything is reset, when I can just come back into myself, just be a human for 5 minutes and not worry about anything else. That 5 minutes is not gonna mess up everything. In fact, if you can take 5 minutes just to really come back into yourself, feel all your body, feel your heart, feel your breath, and feel it all, everything you do after that will seem so much easier and you're going to do it so much better.
I definitely feel like that was for me because I definitely get caught up in the stresses of I gotta make it happen. I gotta make life happen, and all it does is just add more stress and stress and stress. And I'm just like, I definitely not have time to meditate. Like I need to meditate. Like it's such a great benefit to have that moment of 15 minutes to just ground yourself and set your day up for success. It's yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So I had one last question that just came to mind, and it's something that is really important to me. I often wonder how what would be the best way to kind of have those communities that people have, like so there's tribes in South America, and that's why those traditions stick it out throughout time. But deeper into that, they're a community of people who help each other grow. And I always wondered, how can we eventually figure out to how can we make even a fraction of that happen in North America, where we have these groups of people who kind of help each other grow, and it's not about enabling you to not do your own inner work, but just to also encourage you to, hey, I'm doing the inner work too. We're in this together, and we're helping each other grow. Like, how can we figure out a way to make that a thing in America?
Yeah. Um, well, I think we all can just start, with our closest friends and neighbors. I remember, many years ago when I was first getting started, just to even have friends over for tea and talk about, you know, what we were working on in terms of spiritual growth or, um, like, and so sometimes those can turn into where we're just complaining about life and we want to kind of avoid that, but like really have someone who can keep it focused on, all right, what are we working on? And how do we see ourselves coming out of that, heaviness? And, and it could be coming together over tea, it can be coming together to meditate for 15 minutes, it could be coming together. Another fun one, which I'm going to do with some friends at the end of December, is do a cacao ceremony. So the raw cacao is actually another plant from South America. Um, and have the cacao ceremony. We're drinking that pure raw cacao and then and talking and letting. And if you think about the ancient, or if you think about the Native American tradition of the talking stick, do that. It's okay. I mean, you can have it if you don't want. If you think that that's appropriation to use the talking stick, then have something else. But there's nothing wrong with the idea of coming together and using, something where everyone gets a chance to express what's most on their heart, emotionally, and to really feel out their feelings and to have it be heard. It's so much. I think so useful to. Feel heard. I think most people nowadays, we don't feel heard, and I think a lot of people, that's part of our problem is, we have all this stuff going on, and yeah, you're right. I focus a lot about our own individual work, but I'm glad that you brought this up because it's also we're doing this individual work so we can be in community, and so for me, I just started having people over, small groups here and there, and eventually it grows. So.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It starts with you. That's a great message. Yeah, it starts with you. Okay. Yeah. And lastly, where can people find out more about you if they want to reach out to you?
Sure. Let's see. I can give them my email address. It would be hummingbirdmedicine@gmail.com. So hummingbird like the bird, medicine@gmail.com.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This has been a great podcast episode. Thank you so much for your time. I learned so much. And to the audience, if you've learned something, please don't hesitate to drop nice comments in the comment section. Give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to reach out to Tamara, I'll provide the email address in the description box. So, yeah, thank you again so much for your time and praise the sun.
Thank you. Yes, praise the sun.